Today, in honor of my Green Bay Packers taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm going to be making carne asada, nachos, and quesadillas. Super simple but delicious tailgating food that you can bring to any game day party you may be attending. My name is Ben. For those of you that do not know me, without delaying any further, let's get into the episode, shall we? To start things off today, I'm going to be making a marinade for my steak. To go in the marinade itself, I have a half a cup of olive oil, 2 limes. I'm going to be using a lime and a half for the marinade itself, 3 large cloves of garlic, a big bowl of cilantro that I'm going to be mincing up finely. I have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and a tablespoon of brown sugar. I'm also going to be adding salt and pepper to the marinade itself. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is chopping up my cilantro really finely and getting it really nice and chopped down. You can use a food processor if you'd like to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to chop it the old-fashioned way. Probably take me a minute or two just to chop it up. Now that we finished the chopping, we're going to combine all the ingredients together. So I'm going to take my fresh herbs, which smell fantastic. There's nothing like fresh herbs in cooking. It really gives a nice aroma to the food. Along with the cilantro there, we're gonna add the olive oil, the cloves of garlic we are going to crush one by one. We're gonna add our brown sugar, soy sauce, add the lime, I should say the lime juice, not the lime itself. If you have a zester, you can add the zest to it if you'd like. Couldn't seem to find my zester today. One trick, if you roll it around before you actually cut it, it'll be more of a juicy lime, or you'll get more juice out of it. And then last but not least, we're going to be adding our steak. Not a whole lot of steak tonight, but it's just going to be me eating it. So then toss it all together. Allow it to really coat the steak. And we're going to be allowing it to rest now in the fridge for up to 4 hours. If you don't have 4 hours, if you only have an hour, let it rest an hour. Let it rest as long as you can up to that 4-hour point. So make sure it's all mixed together. I'm gonna wash my hands, seal this up, put it in the fridge, and let it rest now for 4 hours. Once again, if you don't have 4 hours, let it rest an hour if that's what you got. The more time you can let it rest, the better, the more flavor it's gonna take on. I've been marinating my steak now for a few hours. I didn't do a full 4 hours because I was growing impatient and wanted to get to cooking. So it's been a few hours now that it's been in the fridge. And what I have going is I have my skillet, my cast iron skillet heating up. We're gonna be cooking on this today. If you want, you can do it on your grill, depending on the weather where you're at. It's getting a little bit chillier here in Wisconsin. So I am doing it on the flat top for the convenience of it, as well as it's been raining all day today. So I have this heating up right now. We're gonna make sure it's nice and hot before we actually put the steak on. The steak itself is not gonna take long to cook. It's a thinner piece of meat, so really probably a couple minutes and it'll be done. So the cast iron feels nice and hot. We're gonna get our steak on and get it cooking. I don't need to put any oil on this since the marinade has so much oil on it already. So we're just gonna really add it right to it. been a couple minutes on this side. I'm gonna just take a look, see how it's looking. Getting those nice grill marks. Couple more minutes here. One thing I will say is that it smells unbelievable with those fresh herbs, the garlic. It smells great, can't wait. So it's been probably 3 or 4 minutes total here. I'm gonna just remove it off the hot top here and let it rest. So now that the steak is done, we're gonna start prepping the 2 things I'm gonna be making today. So I'm making a carne asada quesadilla as well as carne asada nachos. So I'm gonna just take the steak and kind of cut it at a little bit of an angle. Get it nice thin pieces, that way you can add it to your nachos or your quesadilla. While you're cutting up your steak, make sure your oven's preheating. I have mine preheating to 350 right now. That's how we're gonna make our nachos today. Steak is still nice and pink in the middle, so not too overdone. Still a little bit of pinkness and moisture in the middle. The juices are obviously flowing all over the cutting board, as you can see, which is where you want it. You don't want it to be a super dry steak or anything once you're all said and done. And it is gonna cook a little bit yet while you make the quesadilla and such. So if you're not the type of person that likes pink in their meat, I would say in this situation, maybe keep it a little pink because you're still gonna cook it a little bit. I'm gonna just kind of dice up some of these. Some of them are a little bit longer in length, just to make it a little bit easier and make sure I get a piece of steak as much as possible throughout the dishes. That looks about good. I am gonna try a small piece of this steak because it looks absolutely incredible, and I wanna try it before I have it with nachos or in a quesadilla. Let's try this piece here. Really good marinade. The garlic comes through really well. That soy sauce comes through more than I expected it to, considering it was competing with cilantro and garlic. And then that cilantro kind of finishes at home. So you get that freshness of the cilantro after you hit the garlic and soy sauce wall. Really excited to try this in a quesadilla and try it with nachos. So I'm gonna wash my hands real quick and get ready to make our quesadilla and our nachos. I have the oven preheating to 350 like I mentioned earlier, so make sure you have yours going as well. That way we can assemble the nachos and get the quesadilla started. So I'm going to start by making my nachos, or assembling my nachos. So I'm gonna take a handful of chips here. Just got normal tortilla chips, nothing too crazy. And put a small layer on the tray. Once you have your layer of chips, I'm going to add some of my steak. And then I'm going to add a nice handful of a Fiesta blend cheese. I think it's, what is it, queso, cheddar, maybe some mozzarella in there. I don't know, you can buy it bagged up as a queso blend. But really nice big layer of it. Make sure I'm covering it around. And that's how you're gonna get the cheesiness and the stringiness of the cheese, by adding a nice layer of it. And then I'm going to throw it in the oven for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Depending on the size of the nachos and how big you're making, it can cook a little bit quicker or slower. So I'm gonna just put it in and keep an eye on it periodically. And while we have our nachos going, I'm going to get started on our quesadilla. The trick to a good quesadilla is to cook it slow. So cook it nice and low temperature, and nice and slow. You'll get the cheesiness, you'll get the crunchiness of the tortilla, and If you do it too fast, if you have the heat on too high or you're too impatient with it, your tortilla will get burnt or golden brown way too quick before the cheese even melts. So you want to make sure you're just taking your time with it. It's not a race. You'd rather have a good product at the end. Sprinkle this meat on there. So I put one layer of cheese, and now I am doing a layer of meat. And to finish it off, just adding another layer of cheese. Put the other tortilla over top. Set my front heat to, I would say, low to medium, right in that middle spot. And I'm also gonna put a lid over the top. That will help it cook and help that cheese melt together at a quicker pace than just letting it sit out. So we're gonna keep an eye on this. I would say maybe check it a couple minutes. By the time the quesadilla is done, the nachos should be done as well. Okay, it's been a couple minutes. Let's take a look at it. Coming together nicely. It's not quite to the point of wanting to flip yet, but we are getting there. You can see the golden brownness start. Probably 30 seconds away from wanting to flip it. Gave it a flip. We'll throw the lid back on. While this is finishing up for the last minute or so, I'm going to grab the nachos out of the oven. All right, let's check our quesadilla. Looks perfect. Remember our small half of lime? What I'm actually gonna do is just squeeze it over the nachos a little bit, add some tartness to the nachos. And then we're gonna cut up this quesadilla and take a look on the inside. Nice and crispy. Really beautiful, cheesy, which is exactly what you want out of a quesadilla. If your quesadilla is not cheesy, then what is it? You know, it's not even a quesadilla at that point. All right, now comes the fun part. Let's give it a try. I'm gonna go with this chip right here, since it has a lot of steak on there. The first thing you taste is the acidity from that lime. That citrus really hits you in the mouth right away. And then that cheese crunchiness, saltiness from the chips. Then you really get hit with the steak, the garlickiness of it, followed by the soy sauce, and then the cilantro really brings it home. I'm telling you, if you bring this to a tailgating party, game day party, to your friend's house, whatever, people are gonna be pretty impressed by how simple of a dish this is, but how flavorful it is. I would gladly eat that at any of my tailgating parties. Now the quesadilla, we're gonna give it a try. The nice part is I can still see the steak is a little pink on the inside, which is how I like my steak. So I know that the steak didn't get super cooked while cooking the quesadilla. Doing it nice and low on the stovetop, you can see that goldenness. It really brings a nice crunch to tortilla. Tortilla is not soggy at all. The cheese the cheese is what hits you right away, followed by that steak once again. It really just brings home that cilantro, the freshness of it is really the aftertaste or the last thing that hits your palate, which is really, really good. Kind of leaves that freshness that you're looking for in a meal like this. Honestly, it couldn't be an easier, perfect dish to bring to a tailgating. Now obviously you could spruce it up a little bit more if you wanted to put sour cream on there or onions or something nastier, if you will, on the dish, but I'm a simple man. I like to keep it simple and have the basics and let those shine through. If you don't mind, I'm gonna eat the rest of my quesadilla now. And that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for taking the time. It truly means the world to me that you're watching this. Some of you are even sending me pictures of the recipes you're making off of the recipes that I make here. That is super cool. If you have any of those or if you've made anything I've made, send me a picture. I'd love to post it or share it. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. Hit the little bell button in the corner. That'll open up or turn on notifications. That way you're seeing anytime I'm posting a new video. Follow me on any of my social medias. The Green Bay Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or if you want to add me on Snapchat, the GB Guy there. Really, until next time, thank you again and go Pack Go.